She smiled when she said it. She stopped smiling when I opened my purse. The champagne glass nearly slipped from my fingers when my Aunt Patricia leaned across the wedding table and said the words that rewrote my entire life. "You know your mom hid that letter, right? We all knew." My name is Bella Harvard, Lieutenant Commander Bella Harvard, United States Coast Guard. I have pulled drowning sailors from 40-foot waves in the Bering Sea. I have made life-or-death decisions with frozen hands and a failing radio. I have stared down situations that would break most people, and I have never, not once, looked away. But in that moment, sitting at my sister's wedding reception in my dress uniform, with the string quartet playing something soft and romantic in the background, and 300 guests laughing around me, I felt something crack inside my chest that no amount of military training had ever prepared me for. I looked at my mother across the white linen tablecloth. She had heard every word. She didn't look panicked. She didn't look ashamed. She looked mildly annoyed, the way you look when someone spoils a surprise, not when they've just exposed the most devastating betrayal of your life. She picked up her wine glass, set it down, smoothed the napkin in her lap. And then she smiled at me. "Bella," she said, her voice calm and reasonable and utterly unbothered, "you wouldn't have lasted a semester." Then I reached into my purse. Let me take you back to the beginning, because this story doesn't start at a wedding. It starts in a kitchen in Chesapeake, Maryland, in the spring of 2007, when a 17-year-old girl checked the mailbox every single day for 6 weeks waiting for a letter that never came. That girl was me. I had applied to Columbia University's School of Engineering on a dare, my own dare, to myself, the kind you make at 2 in the morning when you've just finished your 3rd AP exam and you're too tired to be afraid. I had a 4 GPA, 2 years of varsity swim team, a science fair regional championship, and a physics teacher named Mr. Donovan who told me I was the most naturally gifted student he'd taught in 20 years. I applied, I wrote the essays, I submitted everything on time. And then I waited. Every day after school, I ran to the mailbox before my mother got home from work. I don't know why I did that. Some instinct, maybe. Some quiet warning from a part of me that understood things my conscious mind wasn't ready to accept. March turned to April. April turned to May. Nothing came. My mother told me, gently and with tremendous sympathy, that Columbia was a reach school. That rejection was nothing to be ashamed of. That the state university had a wonderful engineering program, and she would be right there with me on move-in day. I believed her. I believed her because she was my mother, because she had packed my lunches and attended my swim meets and cried at my 8th grade graduation, because the idea that she would deliberately intercept and destroy a letter that could have changed everything, that idea was simply too enormous to fit inside the mind of a 17-year-old girl who still trusted the people who were supposed to love her. So I enrolled at the state university. I studied hard. I joined ROTC on a whim and discovered that the military gave me something college alone never could: structure, purpose, a chain of command that rewarded competence regardless of who your mother was. I graduated, I commissioned, I built a career. And for 14 years, I carried a small, quiet sorrow about Columbia the way you carry an old injury. You don't think about it every day, but it's always there when the weather changes. I told myself it was fine. I told myself I had built a good life. I told myself that things work out the way they're supposed to. I was telling myself a story. 3 weeks before Grace's wedding, I received an email from a woman named Dr. Carolyn Voss, Associate Dean of Alumni Affairs at Columbia University. She was working on a research project documenting cases where accepted students never enrolled, a study on the factors that rerouted high-achieving students away from their intended paths. She had found my name in Columbia's historical admissions archives, class of 2008, accepted with a partial academic scholarship. I read that email 4 times. Then I picked up the phone. Columbia's records office was helpful and thorough. Yes, the letter had been sent. Yes, there was a scholarship attached. Yes, the offer had expired without response. They had assumed I simply chose another school. They sent me a certified copy of my original acceptance letter and scholarship documentation. 14 pages, officially stamped undeniable. I held those papers in my hands, and I sat very still for a very long time. Then I started thinking about every conversation I'd ever had with my mother about Columbia. Every sympathetic look. Every, I'm sure they just didn't see what I see in you. Every gentle redirection toward the state school, toward staying close to home, toward a life she had already designed for me without my knowledge or consent. She had not just hidden the letter. She had performed grief about its imaginary rejection. She had comforted me for a loss she had engineered. She had watched me mourn a door she had personally closed and locked and hidden the key to. And apparently, the entire family had known. I put those 14 pages in a manila envelope, and I put that envelope in my purse. And I flew to Maryland for my sister's wedding. I want to be honest about something. I did not go to that wedding planning a confrontation. I went to that wedding telling myself I would figure it out afterward, that I would find a quiet moment, a private conversation, that I would handle it the way I handle everything, with composure, with professionalism, with the kind of measured grace that 20 years in the Coast Guard had built into my bones. But Aunt Patricia had been drinking since 4 in the afternoon, and some truths are simply too big to stay buried. When she leaned across the table with her wine-bright eyes and her unsteady hands and said, "You know your mom hid that letter, right?" She didn't just drop a bomb on the evening. She gave me permission to stop performing calm, permission to stop protecting a woman who had never extended me the same courtesy. So when my mother smiled and said I wouldn't have lasted a semester, I reached into my purse. I placed the manila envelope on the table. I slid it across the white linen toward her. "Open it," I said. She didn't want to, I could see that. For the first time all evening, the composure cracked slightly, a tightening around her eyes, a stillness in her hands that hadn't been there before. But 300 people were suddenly very quiet, and Grace was standing at the edge of the table in her wedding dress with an expression I had never seen on her face before, and there was nowhere left to hide. My mother opened the envelope. She removed the papers slowly. The certified copy of my acceptance letter, the scholarship documentation, the cover letter from Dr. Voss, the timestamp on the original letter, March 14, 2007, printed clearly at the top of the first page. She looked at them for a long time. The string quartet had stopped playing. I don't know when. I only noticed the silence when it had already settled completely over the room. "Columbia sent me copies," I said. "Official copies. They have the original in their records. I have spoken to an attorney. I want you to understand that I am not here to make a scene at Grace's wedding." I paused. "I am here because you were going to see me eventually, and I wanted you to see me like this, in this uniform, with these papers, so that you would understand exactly what I built without your permission." My mother set the papers down. For a moment, just a moment, something moved across her face that might have been the beginning of remorse. A softening around the mouth, a brightness in the eyes that wasn't pride and wasn't anger. Then it was gone. "I did what I thought was best," she said. "For who?" I asked. She didn't answer. Here is what I know about my mother that I didn't understand when I was 17. She was afraid. She has always been afraid of distance, of losing people, of the particular loneliness of a woman whose husband left when her daughters were small, and who built her entire identity around being needed. Columbia was 700 miles away. Columbia was a different world, a different life, a version of me that existed entirely outside her orbit. She couldn't control Columbia. She could control a mailbox. I understand this now. I have spent enough years around people in crisis to recognize fear wearing the costume of love. I know that she did not wake up that morning in March 2007 thinking I am going to destroy my daughter's future. She woke up thinking I cannot lose her too. Understanding it does not make it acceptable. Understanding it does not give me back 14 years. Understanding it does not ungrieve the 17-year-old girl who checked that mailbox every day until she stopped believing she was worth the letter. Grace found me outside an hour later, sitting on a stone bench in the garden with my heels off and the night air cold against my dress uniform. She sat down beside me without saying anything for a long time. "I didn't know," she finally said. "I know you didn't." "Bella," her voice broke slightly, "I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry," I looked at her. My little sister in her enormous beautiful dress, mascara slightly smudged, looking at me with the same eyes we'd had since childhood. "Be honest with me. That's all I've ever wanted from this family. Just be honest." She took my hand, held it. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I looked up at the Maryland sky, clear and cold and full of stars. The same sky I'd looked at from the deck of a cutter in the North Pacific. The same sky I'd navigated by on night operations. The same sky that had always felt more like home than any house my mother had ever kept. "I already did it," I said. "I put the papers on the table. She saw them, everyone saw them, that's enough for tonight. And after tonight." I thought about Dr. Voss's email, about the research project, about the attorney I had consulted who had been careful and measured, but had not told me there was nothing to be done, about the 14 pages sitting in a manila envelope on a wedding reception table in Annapolis, Maryland. "After tonight," I said, "I go back to my unit, I go back to my work, I go back to the life I built." I squeezed her hand, and I stopped carrying the weight of a door she closed, because I found my own doors, and I walked through every single one of them. Grace cried a little. I held her hand and let her. My mother left the reception early. I stayed until the last song. I danced with Grace. I toasted her new husband. I hugged cousins I hadn't seen in years and promised to visit and meant it slightly more than I usually did. When I finally went back to the table to collect my things, the manila envelope was still there. My mother had left the papers behind. I picked them up carefully, folded them back into the envelope and tucked it into my purse. I had not brought them to wound her. I had not brought them to perform revenge. I had brought them because for 14 years I had carried a story about myself. A story that said I was not good enough, not ready enough, not strong enough to have lasted at Columbia University. And I needed her to see with her own eyes, in front of everyone she loved, that the story was a lie she had written. Not me. Hers. Lieutenant Commander Bella Harvard walked out of that reception hall with her shoulders back and her uniform straight, and her 14 pages tucked against her heart. The valet brought her rental car around. She drove toward the harbour. She rolled down the window and let the night air in. And for the first time in 14 years, she breathed like a woman who had finally, completely, put something down. If someone has ever made you feel like you weren't enough, save this story. Share it with someone who needs to remember that the doors other people close cannot stop you from building your own.